Hey guys, Ramsey here. Welcome to another video. Today we've got a early impression video on a fragrance that I actually really like. I think it's my favorite from the house, and it's not a house that I talk very much about because it is a house that I own exactly 0 bottles from. So this is a fragrance that I think is the best from the house, and it's actually the most hyped from the house. So usually I don't like the fragrances that are really hyped, but this is sort of a little bit of an exception. And it's from the house of Tiziana Terenzi, and this is called Laudano Nero. Laudano Nero. Come on, camera. My camera, there we go. Laudano Nero. So basically, Laudano Nero translates to black labdanum, is basically what this fragrance is called. And it's actually a perfect name for the fragrance. It came out in 2014. And I think that this fragrance is one of the few Tiziana Terenzi fragrances that is worth the money from what I've smelled. And I haven't smelled everything from the house, but I do have a couple fragrances from the house that I've done videos on. You can go check it out. I have a Tiziana Terenzi playlist on the channel. But the very first thing that sort of pops in your head about from this fragrance to me is this gummy labdanum. And if you've ever touched or seen real labdanum close up on camera, it is extremely sticky. Like if you grab labdanum and put it on your fingers and go like this, it's almost like you're touching glue. It is an extremely sticky, thick resinous, and it opens up, this fragrance basically opens up slightly boozy because there's a couple boozy notes listed in the top. There's cognac and there's absinthe. And cognac is the one that I think you're mostly going to smell mixed with the labdanum. But the absinthe mixes with a couple other green notes, rosemary and myrtle, to sort of act, and I really do like myrtle. Myrtle adds a slightly camphoraceous-like undertone to a fragrance. And the green notes sort of, if you will, stay underneath, but they add a little bit of contrast to an otherwise fragrance that is all about resins. Like, for me, if I had to guess how many, like if you just blindfolded me and I sprayed this on my hand and said, guess what notes are in here? It would be things like labdanum, Peru balsam, Tolu balsam, myrrh, some sort of smoky notes, some sort of maybe frankincense or something like that. Those would be my guesses, mostly resins. I would think about like 10, maybe amber, I guess what other things are used to create that ambery labdanum-like accord? Those would be the things that popped in my head. It wouldn't be what actually is in the note listing. Like I'll read you the note listing here. So there's cognac, there's black amber in the top, Latakia tobacco, which we'll talk a little bit about that, myrtle, absinthe, and rosemary. That's the top. The heart is cedarwood, acacia honey, camphor tree, cashmere, flowering ash, which is a very strange note, but flowering ash, iris, rosemary again in the heart, sandalwood, slate, which is like a mineralic note, red rose in the heart, and then finally in the base you have the frankincense I was mentioning earlier, oud, bay leaf, bourbon vanilla, caper, very strange, maybe the only fragrance I've ever smelled that has a caper note, but we'll talk about that later on, gum rock rose, which is labdanum basically, another name for labdanum, oak moss, musk, and vetiver. So that's the note listing. It's a very comprehensive note listing. But what it ends up smelling like to me is a labdanum-centric fragrance, okay? And I've actually done reviews on a couple of these labdanum-heavy perfumes. One is Tom Ford's Sahara Noir. That is on my wish list. Actually, to me, there's a couple labdanum fragrances that I have reviews on the channel that don't get very much talk, but if I was going to add another labdanum perfume to my, gosh, I had a long day, as you can see with the tie. I had a meeting. But if I was going to add it to my collection, I would probably add something like Tom Ford Sahara Noir, if I could find it, because it's so hard to find. Or even the Zoo has a fragrance called Everlasting, and that is an amazing labdanum fragrance. I think I prefer Sahara Noir and even the Zoo's Everlasting. I prefer it to Laudano Nero. But that being said, I don't want to take away from Laudano Nero because I really do feel like this is one of the best labdanum fragrances in the game. My favorite labdanum fragrance of all time is Le Lion. And I have yet to do a full review of Le Lion, but I will very soon. So I'm reviewing my favorites now. So stuff like Le Lion will get a full review, but honestly, the reason I haven't added any of those other fragrances to my collection is because I don't think you can top this. And also, Roja loves using labdanum. And so, for example, if you've heard me talk about things like Roja's, this is called Haute Luxe. Well, it's actually called Roja, but it's in the Haute Luxe collection. This is his Chypre, his signature scent, if you will, that they only make 250 bottles for the whole year, and they put stupid gold flakes in there. But this is a Chypre with a very heavy labdanum touch. And so for me, I would probably wear, if I was craving that labdanum, I would wear something like this, or something like Le Lion, or even some of the other Rojas like PDLN line. PDLN number 1, number 3 are very labdanum heavy perfumes. So I do have some choices when it comes to labdanum fragrances. And even though I do think that this is not in that exact top tier, like I wouldn't put this up against Le Lion. That's not fair. I think this is a far superior fragrance to Laudano Nero. That being said, I do think that this deserves to be in the conversation of the best labdanum fragrances. I don't think it's in that very top tier, but I think it deserves to be at least in the conversation. That's my opinion on just, and I'm not obviously I can't call myself an expert on this fragrance because this is all the experience I've had. I've got a chance to wear it to bed once, and I'm actually wearing it as my scent of the day today. I have about a 6-hour dry down here and about a 1-hour dry down here. And so let me take you through it. So I'm not the biggest Tiziana Terenzi fan. Like I said, I own 0 fragrances from Tiziana Terenzi. And the main reason for that, and like I said, I've reviewed 2 on the channel. One is a fragrance called Ursa from 2015, which that one is very similar to Straight to Heaven Extreme by Killian, which I own a bottle of that, so I wouldn't get Ursa. The other one is Arrakis. You can go check out my thoughts on Arrakis from 2019. But both fragrances come with some cons. And the con with Tiziana Terenzi is, well, they can be a pro to somebody and they can be a con to somebody else. Because remember, fragrance is subjective. And so whenever you're smelling a fragrance like a Tiziana Terenzi fragrance, they are beast mode compositions, meaning there are a lot of materials that give a lot of push to the fragrance. And so whenever you're smelling a Tiziana Terenzi, yes, it's big and yes, it's beast mode, but that also means that they're using things like the oud accord or the amberwood accord, or and so there are some people that just absolutely cannot stand it. 0. Like if there's amberwoods in there, they're out, right? And for me, I'm not there. I try to judge everything on its own basis, and I can stand, luckily I can stand some amberwoods. I don't have the bug where if I smell an amberwood, I'm completely out. But there is something underneath while you're wearing this. You'll notice it. You'll notice that oud. You'll notice that amberwood. You'll notice that sort of underlying Tiziana Terenzi DNA, which I've come to understand a little bit getting to review Ursa and Arrakis. So when you're smelling Laudano Nero, understand that the labdanum, it's almost like the labdanum is stapled right there at the front of the composition, and everything else is sort of taking turns rotating in the back. The labdanum is beautiful. I will tell you that right now. I think this is a beautiful labdanum fragrance. And labdanum is one of my favorite notes, period. Like, it's not like labdanum is one of my favorite notes, but it literally is one of my favorite notes. I think labdanum is a note that is so complex and so beautiful, even on its own. Like, labdanum can be its own fragrance. To me, that's something that Roja and I actually agree on, because I know he loves labdanum and puts it in a lot of his compositions. And if I was a creative director for a brand, I would do exactly the same thing. It gives it this very heavy type feel. It's bold and ambery and thick and leathery. Labdanum can also come off as slightly leathery. And here, you do get leathery facets, but I think you even get more of those ambery facets. So it really feels like there's an amber accord that's being built there. And underneath that stapled labdanum note that's right there in front of your face, that's where you sort of get the stuff underneath. You get the camphoraceous smelling myrtle, and you get the rosemary, and you get the sandalwood and that flowering ash note, whatever the heck that is. I just imagine like ash coming out of a volcano, falling on the ground, and a flower instantly grows, you know, something weird like that. But there are little pieces underneath. There's that vetiver underneath. There's the oak underneath, but it's really underneath. The front and center, the thing your nose is going to pick up on are the resins, especially that labdanum note. And so let's talk a little bit about the way that labdanum sort of feels in a composition, because like I said, labdanum has a very specific texture, and it almost comes across. So when you're smelling labdanum, or when you're imagining it, when you're imagining the way that it smells, to me, labdanum comes across as almost having this sticky, like molasses smell, okay? So imagine like trying to pour molasses out of a jar. You'd be sitting there forever, right? You ever heard the word slow as molasses? Labdanum is extremely thick and gummy. And this fragrance, that's actually the very first word that came to mind, was gummy. I think it's a very gummy feeling fragrance. It's almost like glue. It almost has this texture of glue. And what's interesting is, in ancient times, if you got cut in a battle or something like that, they would fill your wound up with labdanum, because labdanum actually has some natural healing properties to it on one hand, but on the other hand, it worked as like a clog. Like it clogged up the wound so blood wasn't just flowing out of you. Almost like super glue was used in World War II. You know, it was used to sort of close up the wound in ancient times. And labdanum is so sticky that it's almost hard for humans to harvest it. So what they would do, the easiest way to harvest labdanum, is they would actually send goats out to the field. And the goats would chew on these, they call it gum rock. This gum rock rose is a name for it. And so imagine the goats like chewing on this gum rock rose. It has nothing to do with the rose, by the way. It's a completely different species, genus of flowers. So the goats chew on this, and it gets in their beard. And what happens is this labdanum would sort of get in the goat's beard. Here I am, a ram, showing you my beard, right? But imagine this labdanum getting in the goat's beard, and the goats chew on it, and then they go back, let's say, to their goat herder, and the goat herder has a very specialized brush, and they would actually brush the beard out to harvest the labdanum. It's the easiest way to harvest large quantities of labdanum. Allow the goats to do the heavy lifting. So along with that sticky, gummy, resinous labdanum type feel, Laudano Nero has a little bit of ash. Like I said, flowering ash is what's actually listed, but there is a little bit of this ashiness, this smokiness from the frankincense, and it all sort of comes together. But I don't want you to imagine ash. Like if you've ever smelled this fragrance, this is Myths Man by Amouage. There's a brilliant ash note in here. Probably if you said, Ramsey, show me your fragrance with the perfect ash note, I would say this is it. I mean, this smells like volcanic ash coming down, or like something that was cremated, you know. There's that sort of ash note that's used in Myths Man, and that's not the ash note that's used in Laudano Nero. The ash note that's used in Laudano Nero almost feels like burnt tobacco ash. So it almost feels not ash from a volcano, but like burnt tobacco ash. So there is this Latakia tobacco note, which is a very specific type of tobacco that is sun-dried and cured in the Middle East. And so this is known as like an Oriental tobacco. It actually originated in Syria, and many times it's found mixed with things like pipe tobacco. Occasionally they'll mix it with cigars and cigarettes, but mostly it's mixed with pipe tobacco to help control how fast the tobacco burns, and also add this sort of flavoring, because it has this woody sort of oriental floral like feel to it. So imagine like cured tobacco. Imagine tobacco that's sun-dried and cured, and burns very slowly, right? Imagine this very slow burning tobacco. Imagine tobacco that was dipped in molasses. That's actually a great representation for how the ash note smells, because it's burning, but it's burning very slowly. And that's the way that the ash note feels in this. And it's sort of blended with the fragrance in a way that never overpowers the resins. It allows that dark labdanum, black labdanum, remember that's the name, black labdanum, to really sort of shine. And it plays off of it without overpowering any of the ingredients. The natural qualities of the labdanum are allowed to sort of shine. So you get this incensey, oudy, leathery type all throughout the fragrance. You know, it has a little bit of, you know, there's a little bit of development, but just a little bit, because underneath, you know, you get some of those green notes and they leave. You get some honeyed notes, they leave. You get some woody notes, they leave. You get that ashy tobacco and they leave. But the resins, you get that weird caper note, which is maybe one of the strangest notes I've ever seen in perfumery. Caper, you know, like you're making an Italian meal or something. I just imagine like, what is it, lemon chicken with capers on top or something, like just a weird note. No way in the world would anyone think there's a caper note in here. Just very, very strange, right? And so even though there's a lot of strange fragrance notes inside of Laudano Nero, so I mentioned capers, which is definitely the weirdest, but there's also a slate note in here, which gives it a little bit of this mineralic touch, but I don't want you to get too caught up on the notes that are outside of the realm of normalcy, let's say. I don't want you to look at this and think, oh, no way in hell would I ever wear this, because it's not true. It's actually a very wearable fragrance. It's August the 22nd of 2023. I'm wearing this as my scent of the day, and I absolutely love it. Now, I'm indoors. It's air conditioned. It's 100 degrees out in Texas, 106 or whatever the hell it's going to be today. But, you know, I wouldn't worry too much about the weird notes, because this doesn't smell like a weird fragrance. It smells like a fragrance that is stretchy, balmy, medicinal, sort of sticky, stretchy labdanum is the smell. And then everything else surrounds it. So it creates that sort of resinous monster, if you will. And it's oriental, smoky, dark. Like I said, if I had to pick notes in here, I would say there's myrrh, and there's Peru balsam and Tolu balsam and all of these oriental resinous notes. That's what really comes to mind. And so the image that I'll leave you with is this. Imagine a bubbling cauldron, and I use this sort of imagery whenever I was discussing a Serge Lutens fragrance, but I'm going to take this a step further. Instead of like a bubbling cauldron that is sitting in the woods somewhere, not like a witch's brew bubbling cauldron, but imagine like a bubbling cauldron of a tar pit. All right, so imagine a tar pit, and you know that the tar pit is sticky because you know that all sorts of things have been pulled out of the tar pit. Saber-toothed tigers, dire wolves, woolly mammoths, bisons, all sort of animals get stuck in the tar pit. It's that sticky, right? And I just want you to imagine this old school tar pit sort of bubbling, right? Not the gentle fairy tale bubbles of like a princess blowing soapy bubbles, and you know, and not like soapy, clean, Hollywood style bubbles. These are like thick tar bubbles. When the tar actually bursts, I want you to imagine it like splattering on the wall and sticking, right? Or something like that. There's that sort of feel to the composition. And underneath it has that woody and spiciness that really lasts the whole time. Like I said, the greenness comes in and out, the honeys come in and out, the strange caper and mineralic notes come in and out, but the focus is on those resins. And it's actually a really beautiful fragrance. And for a house that many people just sort of write off as like, oh, this is a house that just does amber wood compositions. And there is some of that in here. There is. That's, I think, how it lasts forever. Also, labdanum is a very long-lasting note, to be fair, but I do think some of that oud note, and there's some, you know, serious synthetics in here, to be fair. But this is the best Tiziana Terenzi fragrance I've smelled. If you said, Ramsey, I'm going to give you a free bottle of Tiziana Terenzi, no doubt, Laudano Nero, 100%. This is the one I would take. I would take this over the other two I smelled, hands down. Some people compare this to Serge Lutens' Chêne. I've actually never smelled Chêne, so I can't speak to that. But I don't even see labdanum, as a note listed, so I doubt that's true, but at least not on Parfumo. Yeah, so Paolo Terenzi, to me, this is his masterpiece. At least if he has a masterpiece, this is what it would be. And if you made me pick a Tiziana Terenzi fragrance, this is the one. This is the one that's closest to my heart. I love these sort of resinous. I love labdanum. I love the name. Everything about it is really perfect. So if you're going to smell one Tiziana Terenzi fragrance, smell Laudano Nero, especially if you're a Labdanum fan. So like I said, more reviews of Labdanum fragrances to come, especially the Goat Labdanum Le Lion for me. But more reviews to come. But I just wanted to do this sort of quick hit video. I was all dressed up, and you know, I don't own a bottle of this, and I probably never will, so I figured this is my chance. And things are starting to settle down a little bit in my life. You know, I thought there was going to be even more changes. I thought I was going to have to move. I'm not going to have to move. So there's some light at the end of the tunnel, so I can sort of calm down and, you know, get back to maybe some of the things that I was doing previously. So anyways, I appreciate everyone watching. I appreciate the support. You guys are absolutely amazing. Thank you to everyone who watches and comments and all of the stuff you do to support me. It's an amazing feeling. I hope you guys appreciate this video. If you've smelled Laudano Nero, I'd love to know your thoughts. Leave me a message in the comments. Like I said, we are still small enough I can reply to every single message. So if you leave a comment, you will get a reply. So thank you, everybody. Cheers, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.